How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the Sactown Sports Kings recap, coming to you live from Golden One Center after the Sacramento Kings fall to the Houston Rockets by a score of 112-104 here on a Sunday. The Kings shoot a season-low 18% from the three-point line. Really does tell the story of tonight's game. The Kings just never look good from the perimeter. You had your main shooters go 0 of 9 from 3, Keegan Murray 0 of 5. Kevin Huerter 0 of 3 and HB 0 of 1. It's going to be really tough on nights where the Kings can't knock down threes for them to win a game. I mean, we've seen all year long this team's pretty reliant when it comes to their three-point shot, and not many times this season, if any, have they really shot this anywhere near this poorly from the three-point line and came up with the result. Looking at it now, this is the 7th game that the Kings have shot under 27% and had a loss. They have never shot below 27% from three and won a game. So this is now the 7th time this season that's happened, and it really does, I think, point to a sign that this team really does live and die by the three. I mean, it does. They don't have to shoot 45% every single night, but it just feels like if they aren't hitting their shots, it's going to affect the rest of their game, and they just really struggle to find different ways of scoring. A lot of tonight, especially in the first half, the Kings did a great job of attacking the paint. They were killing the Rockets at halftime, 34-20 in the paint, and then Houston in that third quarter scored 20 themselves. They outscored the Kings 20-8 in the paint in that third quarter. And really, that was the game. I mean, if you look at it, the Kings beat the Rockets by 7 in the first, only lost by 2 in the second, and they actually won the fourth quarter by 5 points. That third quarter was so bad, it single-handedly lost them the game tonight. 32-14, they were outscored in that third quarter, and that really does tell the story of tonight. It's unfortunate that, again, the Kings are in a position where they really can't afford to be dropping games against inferior opponents like the Rockets are. But here we are again, and I'm looking at it now. Houston is actually one of the games previously this season in which the Kings shot under 27%. They shot 26% against Houston on November 4th. So this is now the second time the Kings haven't been able to knock down their perimeter shots against Houston. And I don't think it's them doing anything special. Houston ran out a lot of three-guard lineups tonight, much like the Kings do with Jalen Green, Van Vliet. You can even argue Dylan Brooks is a guard, but they ran a lot of Amen Thompson, who is listed as a point guard, and Cam Whitmore tonight, who is a guard as well. And that you would think with how the Kings have been playing a lot with Davion Mitchell, Keon Ellis, Fox, Monk on the floor at the same time, some three combination of those guys, that would kind of fall into the Kings style of play. And it just didn't. It really didn't. Fox and Sabonis, for a large majority of tonight, were the only ones who had it going. Through 3 quarters, the Kings only had 3 guys in double figures. Fox, Sabonis, Keegan Murray had 11. Shout out Malik Monk. He had 15 in the fourth quarter. He was great. We've seen him now almost be the Kings leader when it comes to fourth quarter scoring here recently, but it was not good enough. And De'Aaron Fox tonight really, really struggled from the field. 7 of 21, 2 of 9 from 3. There were a couple possessions where it felt like he was forcing it, but I do think that was kind of a symptom of the fact that, again, just not a lot of people had it going tonight. And it's pretty inexcusable. It felt like last year there was rarely a night in which you had 2 Kings slumping on a given day. Sure, maybe Kevin wasn't hitting his shots, but it felt like that meant Keegan or TD or HB was going to have a big night, or Trey Lyles was going to have a big night. But this year it feels like you just haven't had people picking up the slack where others are leaving off. And I think that's why we've just seen a lot of inconsistency this year. You haven't had a lot of surprise performances from surprise guys. I thought coming into this year, and by no fault of his own because he's been hurt here recently, but I thought we were going to get 3 or 4 Sasha Vezenkov crazy games. I think Chris Duarte was supposed to have a game or 2 where he really impacted things, and everybody else down the line. And it just hasn't felt like the Kings have gotten many big performances outside of Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, and Domantas Sabonis these days. Of course, you had the little HB revenge tour. You had Keegan Murray in the middle of the season. having some moments, of course, having his 47-point game, but it feels like every single night it's on De'Aaron, Sabonis, and Monk to have it going. And I don't think that's how this team was built to be. I think that this team, with how they've played here in the past 2 seasons, has been a bit of an equal opportunity offense where, hey, if it's Keegan's night, cool. If it's Herter's night, cool. If it's HB's night, awesome. But it's not going to be just on their stars to carry them to the win. And this year it's felt like more than ever they rely, especially on Domantas Sabonis, but De'Aaron and Malik as well, to be great every single night. And usually they are, but I think we're seeing that, especially with how deep this league is, you need as much help as you can get. And I just don't think the Kings are getting a consistent amount of help. And it's definitely led to a lot of inconsistencies here this season, a lot of frustrations here this season. And I don't know. I don't think that it's going to get cleaned up anytime soon. And, you just hope that the Kings can, I guess, start to win more of these games than lose at this point. It was supposed to be them winning all of these games and really only worrying about the tough competition. But, that's just not how the 2023-24 Sacramento Kings have operated. They play again on Tuesday, where they play the Milwaukee Bucks here in Golden One Center, and then have a back-to-back with the Los Angeles Lakers on Wednesday. They close out the homestand Saturday and Monday against the Knicks and the Grizzlies. We'll see. I mean, these are 2 tougher opponents coming up. You can maybe argue even 3 tough opponents coming up. I would definitely put the Knicks up there, even though they've kind of slid as of late. The Bucks are playing really, really good basketball. They've bounced back since their slow start with Doc Rivers. The Lakers, we saw them the other night. They packed a punch before the Kings eventually quieted them down at what is it called, Crypto.com Arena. And then the Knicks. Those are 3 at least good competition, and you hope that the Kings can win 2 of 3. And it feels like 3 of 3, honestly, might even be a part of this team. It feels like they could go 3-0 and then lose to the Grizzlies, lose to the Raptors, lose to the Wizards, and who knows, maybe they'll lose to the Orlando Magic too. This is a tough one. This is a really tough one to kind of get, it feels like, yet again, the Kings win 2 in a row, have your spirits start feeling a little bit better, and then just come crashing back down to earth. Every little shred of hope that you want to feel is just always completely erased within 2 or 3 games with this team. And it's getting a bit exhausting at this point in the season. You just hope that these kind of things won't happen. And Airborne, you're completely correct. You got swept by a bad team this year. You just went 0-3 against the Houston Rockets. And frankly, I think that this one, the scoreboard honestly does the Kings a lot of favors. This one was not that close. It was not 8 points. Houston got up by as much as 17 in that fourth quarter. Kings did a great job of making it close late, but for a majority of this one, it just felt like it wasn't the Kings' night. And, I don't really know how to feel about that. I mean, I feel about the fact that they get swept by Houston, because it's weird. It's not really a bad matchup on paper for this team. But we've seen, these 3 games, again, have just been pretty much butt whoopings, every single one of them. Really, really scary. Yeah, Street Coyote, I noticed, mentioned this. Şengün tonight. First off, I don't know what he was thinking trying to get that block. It was looking when Houston looks back at the film, and if I'm a Houston Rockets fan and I rewatch that and Şengün doesn't play the rest of the season, which is not looking likely with how he went down there, just the emotions and him getting literally wheelchaired off of the floor. If that's how Şengün's season ends and pretty much how the Rockets season ends, it just wasn't worth it. There was no way Şengün was going to come over the top and swat Sabonis. I think at that time Houston was up 7, maybe even 9. It was a really, really pointless play for him to go all out on, and it just looks so nasty. I'm not going to show any replay of it, but if you look at our good buddy Brendan Nunez's Twitter, you can see he posted a picture, and I think he had it behind a sensor, so if you don't want to see it, go ahead and don't watch it or don't look at it. It's just a screenshot, but pretty much just to give you a visualization here. Şengün's ankle, when he lands, kind of goes under him a bit, and then you see his other leg. This, you can see it more in Matt George's Twitter video. It just kind of buckles. He lands so as one foot curls under, his other foot obviously kind of just stiffens up, and it was really nasty. It buckles for a second, and you can see as his leg kind of stiffens up, he just kind of springboards off of it, and it looked really, really nasty. I'd be surprised if Şengün's season isn't over. And he's had a great season. He didn't play extraordinary tonight. He definitely, got a little bit of his. He had 10 points in the second half, 7 of 14, 6 boards, 2 assists, relatively kept in check. So actually good job on Sabonis for keeping him in check. But it just looked nasty. It looked really, really nasty. And it's just unfortunate if that's how his season ends. But he's clearly on the upward trajectory, and I wouldn't think that actually a lower body injury really affects Şengün that much, because his game isn't really related to athleticism, and you don't really need to be. He doesn't move very quickly either. So even if he loses a quarter of a step, it's not like that was part of his game anywhere. He plays a lot like Nikola Jokic. He's more like Jokic in Sabonis's body. Sabonis' height, because he is more body-wise like Jokic than Sabonis. Sabonis is pretty ripped, pretty shredded. He's just like the way he bumps into people and kind of uses their energy against them. It's really interesting to watch Şengün play. It's a really cool thing. But really, this wasn't just on Şengün. This was a team butt whooping from the Houston Rockets. All five starters finish in double digits. They had Amen Thompson look really good off the bench. He hit a 3 tonight, which from my understanding is like the first time Amen Thompson has hit a 3 in months. I'll have to look that up here real quick. One of the Houston Rockets beat writers was sitting in front of me, and he was kind of going crazy when Amen hit the 3. So that kind of told me that he doesn't hit it often. Yeah, this is Amen Thompson's first 3. It hasn't been that long. February 22nd. And then before that, so he hits about 1 a month is what I'm looking at. Amen Thompson hits about 1 3 a month. And of course, it was against the Sacramento Kings. And as a matter of fact, that can bring me into this one. The Houston Rockets, Amen Thompson contributing 1 of 1 from the 3-point line. Houston Rockets tonight shoot 41.4%. Now, if you've been listening to the show, you know that that's a common theme for the Kings this season. How common? This is the 3rd straight game the Kings have allowed teams to shoot over 40% from 3. It was, let me see here. I have it written down. The Lakers shot 46%. The San Antonio Spurs, who, by the way, are the 3rd worst 3-point shooting team in the NBA, shot 48%. And Houston Rockets tonight shot 41.4%. And by the way, the Houston Rockets are the 2nd worst 3-point shooting team in the NBA. So it just continues to be a trend that it doesn't matter who walks into this gym or really plays the Kings. I shouldn't even specifically blame it on Golden One Center. Whoever the Kings play is just almost guaranteed to have a lights-out 3-point shooting night. So yet another one for that is proof. And the Kings themselves, I mean, on the other end, I mentioned it earlier, but so Houston shoots 41%. The Kings shoot 18%. And again, in a game where you only lose by 8 points, that's really the difference. It's just not being so off from the perimeter. And, of course, if the Kings didn't let up so much in that third quarter, which was primarily because of turnovers. I mean, let me see here. A pretty interesting stat that I was looking at was just field goal attempts. If you look here at halftime, I'll just put it this way. At halftime, the Houston Rockets had 10 less field goal attempts than the Sacramento Kings. By the end of the third, they only had 2 less field goal attempts. And that's because the Kings continued to turn the ball over. Sabonis had 5 turnovers just in the third quarter. And also, they allowed Houston to go to the line 10 times. They allowed Houston to go 10 times to the line. So that's not even that probably even puts Houston's shot attempts over the Kings there. The Kings just turned the ball over, looked incredibly sloppy. They gave up a ton of offensive rebounds. I think they just in that quarter, was it? Yeah, gave up 2 offensive rebounds in that quarter. They had only given up 1 the entire first half. They completely crapped the bed in that third quarter. There's no other way of putting it. The Kings were not good enough in that third quarter, and that absolutely lost them the game. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If they play even marginally better in that third quarter, they win tonight, and I think they win pretty easy. But that's a universe that you just can't live in, because that's not what happened. Points in the paint in that third quarter, absolutely brutal. I think I mentioned it earlier, but 20 points in the paint for Houston in that third quarter, after scoring 20 points in the paint for the first half. I just think that was a clear sign that Houston at the end of halftime, going into the third quarter, made a clear note: we're going to stop the Kings from getting in the paint, and we ourselves need to attack the paint. There is no reason why, if Domantas Sabonis is the center, you shouldn't just attack. It's a strategy that I'm surprised more teams haven't implemented this year. It was a really big problem for the Kings last year. But frankly, I think it's because teams are shooting so well from the perimeter, they're almost like, we don't even need to attack the rim. So it's a little bit concerning that it feels like the Kings are leaking out of, well, I don't know if that's exactly how you're supposed to use this phrase, but it feels like the Kings kind of leaking out of both ends, where, you try and stop one, but the other one is still going. And, you might slow down the threes, but that might mean that things are going to be filtered through the paint a whole lot more, or vice versa. You might pack the paint a lot more, but that could lead to more threes being shot and more threes being made. So it's a pretty tough situation that the Kings are in right now, just with their personnel. And I don't really see how one of those things gets better. Yeah, I don't know what to do about this, Pike. 100%. The Kings were up 13 with about 9 minutes to go in that second quarter. And by the time halftime hit, the Kings were only up 4. By the time the third quarter was over, Houston was up 13. So they just completely lost the lead. And again, it feels like this team almost does better when they're down. I don't know how to explain it. I will say it's kind of where the league is at. I feel like I've said that a couple different times, and I never love it as an excuse, but I do think that, they say it's a game of runs, and, you'll go from, one team goes on a 10-0 run, the other team goes on a 12-2 run. It's just kind of how the league goes. But that's also what's going to happen when your team doesn't play defense, really. I mean, that's really what it is the Kings really struggle to get stops, and how much of it for the other team is the Kings getting stops versus the other team is just missing shots. And you could definitely argue that, with how many leads the Kings give up, it really isn't about what the Kings are doing defensively. It's more so what the other team is dictating offensively. So, Mike Brown talked about it the other day at shoot around for practice. He was talking about the Kings 3-point shooting. And when people say, why the Kings don't have good enough defenders, why don't they just lean into the offense and say forget about defense, which is frankly something I've said before. But Mike Brown used this as a direct example, or as an example. He said, if your kid isn't good at math but is good in science, are you going to say don't worry about math, focus on the science? Which I understand, and that's exactly how a coach has to be. You can't just give your guys the leash and say, hey, it really doesn't matter what we do on the defensive end as long as you're giving me something on offense. That's how you become a fun regular season team. Maybe not even a good regular season team, just a fun one. But that's not how you win basketball games. That's not how you're going to be able to get multiple rounds deep into the playoffs. At some point, you're going to have to stop teams. And it just kind of feels like the Kings, they try. They do try. I don't think that a game like tonight is because of lack of effort, even though I will say they got killed in their rotations. And even that, I would say, is just more so a matter of, I think some people have reactions and some people are instinctual. And I think the Kings do a little bit too much reacting and not enough anticipating. And it feels like that's where their shortcoming is defensively, especially in rotations and kind of getting switched around. Is it's just, it's some people have it, some people don't. It's the intangibles, and you can try and maximize those and try and win or have more good possessions than bad. But at the end of the day, I don't know if this current crop of players is going to ever be able to be a top 15. Definitely I can't see a top 10 defense at any point here. So I don't know. And yeah, absolutely, Pike, 100%. We need that sixth spot. This isn't helping our cause any. We do not want to be in the play-in. Absolutely do not want to be in the play-in. There's no way I trust this Kings team in a play-in situation, especially not against high-end competition like the Lakers and like the Warriors. Those are two league favorites. So I would not trust the Kings in those two games, to one single elimination games. But that might be where they're at, man. I mean, Phoenix is got a really tough closing schedule the rest of the year, so the Kings hopefully have the advantage there. New Orleans, I think now is 2 games or a game and a half clear of the next closest seeding at number 5. So I don't think they're in a position, unless they start to collapse down the stretch, I don't think they're going to give up that spot. So it really is 3 teams now kind of fighting for one spot. It's going to be between Phoenix, Sacramento, and Dallas to fight for that 1-6 spot. And I think the Kings do have a pretty good shot at it, but especially because they play Dallas twice at the end of March. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, and they cannot continue to drop games here. As Street Coyote says here, every single game counts and it matters, and that's why those games losing to or almost losing to San Antonio the other night deserve some boos. And I think tonight, heading into the fourth quarter, there were some boos as well. And I think it's because people understand that every game counts, and you just can't. Nights like this should honestly be viewed as, hey, let's win this thing in 3 quarters so that we can get some rest here, especially with the back-to-back on Tuesday and Wednesday coming up. Would have been really nice for the Kings to just take care of this one, play scrubs in the fourth quarter, and really be ready for a tough back-to-back here coming up this week. And unfortunately, that was not how it went down. The Kings needed every single second of this one and still couldn't get it done. But yeah, it feels like every single game is counting like it's 2 or 3 games, just because of how close the standings are and so many missed opportunities. Sam Amick, in his article with The Athletic that dropped on Friday, mentioned this crazy tidbit about how if the Kings had won pretty much all of their, and all is a tough one to try and, realistically say, imagine if this happened, but just ride with me here. If the Kings would have won pretty much every game in which you look at on paper and say, oh, Tyrese and Siakam aren't playing. Oh, Joel Embiid's not playing. Oh, they're playing the Portland Trailblazers tonight. They're playing the Hornets tonight. Those should be wins. If you take all of those games and put them in all those games that the Kings have lost and turn them into wins, the Kings would be, I think Sam said, a game, maybe 2 games behind the Boston Celtics for the best record in the NBA right now. So that's where this thing gets really frustrating, is the fact that you have so many missed opportunities throughout the year that realistically, I mean, this is why they say you are who your record says you are, because you could do the woulda, coulda, shoulda, and you could say, hey, there's a world where the Kings are one of the best teams in the league record-wise if they just take care of the easy business in front of them. But you are who your record says you are. Since you lost those games, that's why I think even though the Kings are 9 games above 500 right now, the fan base, the people who watch this team every single game, just don't feel good about it. We know that this team is around the same record that they were last year, but it doesn't feel the same. And it's because of expectations, but it's also because we've seen this team have a lot of different opportunities to win games, and they've completely squandered them, and they still have a good record. So it's so hard to not play the imagine if game with this team. And you can't deal with that. Again, you are who your record says you are, but you wonder if come playoff time, if it's going to be a positive or a negative, because you could definitely see how, you could, if you're playing the Minnesota Timberwolves and you're a Kings fan, you could say, look, we played, I guess I shouldn't say played, but we had the opportunity to be one of the best teams in this league. And just because we tricked off tons of games doesn't mean that we still weren't good enough to be in that position. We just didn't execute. So you could convince yourself, hey, we are actually a top quality team. We just didn't get the results to show it, but we played to the, I guess, the possible level of it. Or you can go into the playoffs and say, hey, we lose, we're inconsistent, this is what we do. Even if we win game one big, don't get your hopes up for game two, because we might just completely squander it like we did here every single night. And I think both sides have equal rights to argue their side, because we just don't know. We really don't know. But I still think that there's a shred of hope. I know I said that this team has been ruining all hope that they try and build up, but it does feel like I still have faith that come playoff time, if they get the right matchups, things can go right. Things can go right. So I'm not completely disregarding this team. I know these losses are really tough. I know, yes, that third quarter was incredibly tough, and losing to these bad teams is hard to watch. But this is kind of this is how it's been all season long. And again, I would just say I don't really expect it to get much better. You just kind of hope it doesn't end up biting you in the butt, this level of inconsistency. Keep the faith, though. Absolutely, Street Coyote. Keep the faith. Got to keep the faith. Because, again, there's a chance let's lay it out here. Let's do the hope-led talk. Let's say the Kings sneak, like I said earlier, they've got a shot at that 6th seed just as much as Phoenix does, just as much as Dallas does. Let's say the Kings slip into that 6th seed, just since we're painting the best possible scenario here. Kings get the 6th seed. Let's say Denver moves up to the 1. That means OKC or Minnesota is going to be the 2 seed or 3 seed. And the Kings would play one of those two teams. Well, the Kings, that's definitely their favored matchup, whether it be OKC or Minnesota. So let's just, again, say the Kings get their favored matchup in the first round. Let's say that favored matchup was correctly favored, and let's say the Kings win a 3-6 matchup like they lost the 3-6 matchup last year. It's not impossible. It's not crazy. These teams are all pretty close in terms of the standings relatively, so it's not that – it wouldn't be that shocking if a team like OKC or Minnesota lost in the first round. Second round, since that was a 3-6, you would be playing the 2-3, which would be the winner of OKC or Minnesota versus whoever makes it out of the play-in of Phoenix or Denver. And let's, again, so you either get OKC, who's the 2 seed that you probably felt really good about playing in the first round anyway, or you play a 7 seed in Phoenix, who you've handled all year long, or you play Dallas, who could sneak into that 7 as well. And, we have 2 games against Dallas later this year, but I think the Kings are a lot more talented than Dallas. Dallas has a lot more higher-end upside players with Kyrie and Luka, but I like the Kings 3 through 7 guys a whole lot more than I like Dallas's 3 through 7. So I still am not going to give up faith that there is a possible playoff route here that means the Kings make it a lot further than what we all think right now. But yes, absolutely. This is incredibly frustrating, and it's really tough to see them lose to opponents that it just feels like they should beat every single night. But I will say, they do not play bad teams in the playoffs, and we've seen that the Kings play really well against good teams. And again, in the playoffs, if you have questions about inconsistent effort, that will not be a problem in the playoffs. These guys lock in for the postseason. There will be no lulls. I doubt the Kings shoot 18% in a playoff game, and if they do, well, they're probably not going to win anyway. So we'll see. We'll see how the rest of this season goes. They're still fighting. They're still in it, and we'll just have to see how it goes with tougher competition around the corner. Got Milwaukee on Tuesday, LA on Wednesday, and then I believe they don't play again until Saturday against the New York Knicks. Feels hard to do tonight, but I'm going to try and do 3 stars of the night. I'm going to give my first star. Let me make sure I get all this right, because honestly, it's going to be tough to come up with 3. We'll give it to – I don't even want to give it to De'Aaron. De'Aaron played really poorly tonight. Is there any way I can twist this into a shout-out? Like, Keon played okay tonight, but you look at the stats, and it just wasn't there. Davion played well. Sure. I'll give it to Davion Mitchell. I'm not going to give it to De'Aaron. 1 star today for Davion Mitchell. He hit 2 threes. He had 3 assists as well. He did have a really bad turnover where he just kind of dumped it off to Sabonis and left him there. Davion had a +5 tonight, which is second on the team behind Kevin Huerter, strangely enough. Davion had 8 points, I've talked about before. Davion hitting shots on offense. Just say no stars. I really should just say no stars. I normally would, but I'm trying to I'm trying to keep myself accountable. I feel like I slipped from doing stars at some point in the middle of this season, and I'm trying to get on it as we head down the stretch here. But Davion, yeah, 8 points for Davion. He's in the rotation now. I think he's played a lot better, especially from the perimeter. He's the best 3-point shooter percentage-wise for the Kings tonight. He's been a lot better from 3 in the past really like 2 months. He hasn't been on crazy high volume, but it feels like Davion has really figured out how to be an effective spot-up shooter, which is huge. Now, who knows? He can go back to sliding back down, but let's see here. Just coming into tonight, let me see if I can get since mid-February. We'll just do since mid-February. Davion shooting 60% from 3 in his last 11 games heading into tonight. 60% from 3 on 2 threes per game. He's been great. He has been really, really good. And, of course, his defense is always spectacular. You just got to kind of find out how to keep him on the floor. And the Kings ran more 3-guard lineups tonight with Keon Ellis, Davion, and Malik. They also ran one with, I believe, De'Aaron, Malik, and Keon as well. So I think that means good things for both Keon and Davion's minutes. But we'll just kind of see how that develops. As you know, if Kevin's going to continue to struggle, I talked about it the other day on the live stream. I wonder if maybe Mike Brown considers moving Keon into the starting lineup. I don't think Davion will get in there, but it really wouldn't surprise me if he tries something interesting down the stretch. 2 stars is going to go. Let's go. I'm going to give it to Sabonis, even though if you look at the stat sheet, if you don't look too hard at it, Sabonis looks like he's a clear and obvious 3-star of the night. 25 points, 15 boards, 8 assists for Domas. 10 of 11 from the field. All looks good. All looks great even. The part that doesn't look so good, and the reason why I just have to give him a demerit here, is 9 turnovers. He almost had a quadruple-double. He was trying to get a quadruple-double tonight, something he hasn't done so far this season. Had his second most turnovers in a game this year. He had 11 earlier this season against Charlotte. Finishes with 9 tonight. That's unacceptable. Like I said earlier, he had 5 of those turnovers just in the third quarter. You can't have that. You cannot have Domantas Sabonis have the ball in his hands as much as he does, but turn it over that much, and especially when it led to the stagnant offense that you saw in that third quarter. I really do think Domantas Sabonis is a lot to blame for how bad it looked there. And, you know, he gets a lot of the credit when he puts up the triple doubles, but he's also going to get some blame when you have 9 turnovers in a game. And Sabonis, I'm looking at here, is 10th in the NBA in turnovers per game. It's been something that's been a problem for him all year, but it's kind of been a necessary evil because of how often he has the ball in his hands and how much he creates for others. But 9 is just too much. You cannot afford to have that. You can live, honestly, as crazy as it sounds, you can live with 4 or 5. You can maybe live with 6 if he's really giving everybody an opportunity to get going. But 9 is just way too much. And he's actually 3rd in the NBA in total turnovers. So really bad night for Domas. And I'm going to give my 3rd star to Malik. 20 points, 15 of those just in the fourth quarter. He really kind of put them back in it tonight when they had absolutely no life left. What was he? 6 of 10 in the fourth. It was good. It's nice to see Malik kind of picking up for De'Aaron in those fourth quarter scoring. De'Aaron had 2 points in the fourth. We've kind of seen him struggle recently in the second half, but I think it's good. I think it's a really good thing if the Kings can have two guys down the stretch that they trust and believe can give them buckets and can also set other guys up. Of course, Malik is funny enough. The Kings posted a video, I think, on their Instagram of the guys walking in and asking who has the best court vision, and almost all of them, if not all of them, said Malik. So having a guy like that have the ball in his hands down the stretch, I think is a major positive, and him having the confidence and the team having the confidence in him in those moments, I think is something to build on. So it's unfortunate they don't get the win, but 15 points in the fourth quarter is not something you can just scoff at. So 3 stars for Malik tonight. Unfortunately, it's coming in a loss. I will talk to y'all again. When will it be? Tuesday after the Milwaukee Bucks come to town. And then again, Wednesday after the Lakers come to town. You can check me out tomorrow on Styles and Watkins from 10 to 2 p.m. And that will be it for me. Sayonara. Unfortunately, we don't get a day beam. We always want to see what the beam looks like with the sun still out. Not going to find out today, unfortunately. Y'all have a terrific rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you either tomorrow or Tuesday.